In the misty mountains of Veracruz, where the wind whispers secrets through centuries-old pines, there stands a convent that, for 300 years, has guarded the most unsettling silence of colonial Mexico. Between 1768 and 1785, 17 young nuns disappeared without leaving a single trace, as if the earth itself had swallowed them whole. Church authorities sealed the archives, forbade anyone to speak of it, and even declared that no such convent had ever existed in those mountains. But the stone walls remain. And at night, the locals say, you can still hear desperate chants echoing in the darkness, pleas for help that never reach heaven. What you're about to discover challenges everything you thought you knew about devotion, sacrifice, and the limits of human faith. A truth so dark the church preferred to bury it forever, until now. It was the year 1760, when the convent of Santa Eulalia de Mérida was founded in the most hidden corner of the Sierra Madre Oriental, about 4 leagues from the port of Veracruz. The decision to build a house of prayer in such a remote place was no coincidence. Bishop Joaquin de Villarroel sought a perfect refuge for women who wished to dedicate their lives entirely to God, far away from the temptations of colonial society. The convent, built from the region's black volcanic stone, rose majestically among perpetual fog that never fully cleared, not even under the blazing midday sun. Its walls, 5 feet thick, sealed with lime and, according to colonial tradition, bull's blood, enclosed 3 silent courtyards where ancient orange trees and bougainvilleas bloomed with an almost unnatural intensity. The main chapel, crowned with a dome of blue tiles brought from Talavera de la Reina, shone like a sapphire under the tropical sun and could host 200 souls in prayer. Its Gothic windows, filled with stained glass scenes from the life of Saint Eulalia, cast rainbows across the great altar carved from red cedar by Zapotec artisans who had been converted to Christianity. The nearest settlement, the old town of Xalapa, lay 3 hours away by horseback, along treacherous trails that became impassable during the rainy season. The people of the region, mestizos with Totonac blood, still preserving ancient traditions despite 3 centuries of evangelization, looked upon the convent with a mixture of respect and distrust, a sentiment passed down through generations. In whispers of Nahuatl, they spoke of the place where spirits do not rest, referring to the pre-Columbian ruins that had been deliberately torn down to build the convent's foundations. The elders remembered how their great-grandparents spoke of disturbing dreams whenever the bells of Santa Eulalia rang through the mountains, as if the Christian bronze had awakened echoes of human-skin drums that had been silent for centuries. The first abbess of Santa Eulalia was Sister Esperanza Maria Carmen de la Santísima Trinidad. A 50-year-old woman born into a wealthy family from Puebla, she had abandoned a life of privilege to serve God in absolute austerity. Her gray eyes, always serene, radiated a calm that comforted even the most nervous novices. Under her care, the convent flourished quickly. Young women arrived from across the viceroyalty, daughters of wealthy merchants and colonial families seeking to purify their souls in mountain isolation. By 1765, 36 nuns lived at Santa Eulalia, each with her own story of renunciation and spiritual longing. They followed the strict rule of the Descalced Carmelites, rising at 4 in the morning for matins, when the mountain cold turned their breath into ghostly vapor, 8 hours of prayer divided between prime, terce, sext, nun, vespers, and compline, rigorous fasting 3 days a week, surviving only on holy water, black bread, and bitter herbs. And silence, absolute silence, except for 2 hours of communal labor in the garden or in the convent library. Their cells, as small and austere as confessionals, contained nothing but a pinewood cot without a mattress, an ivory crucifix inherited from Spain, a single-piece oak kneeler, and a small barred window through which they could see only a fragment of sky and the tops of the tallest trees. The refectory, lit by beeswax candles that cast dancing shadows on the stone walls, resonated only with the metallic clink of pewter spoons, the rustle of wool habits against wooden benches, and the measured voice of Sister Esperanza reading sacred texts aloud during meals. The night of October 17, 1768, began like any other at Santa Eulalia. The nuns had finished compline at 9, as usual, and were walking in silence to their cells when the first strange event shattered the convent's century-old routine. Sister Catalina Remedios, a 19-year-old novice who had just arrived from Guadalajara, failed to respond to the bell for matins at 4 in the morning. Concerned by such an unusual absence, Sister Esperanza herself went to cell number 12, in the east wing. The door was locked from the inside, immediately raising suspicion, since convent rules strictly forbade locking doors during rest hours. Forcing it open, she found the cell completely empty. The bed was perfectly made. The crucifix remained in its place. But of Catalina, no trace at all. What disturbed her most was the discovery at the window. The wrought iron bars, installed during construction by Veracruz's most renowned blacksmith, designed to prevent escape, had been bent outward from the inside, twisted with a force that defied rational explanation. The bars, 2 inches thick and tempered in the royal forges of Minas, had been warped as if they were dry branches in the hands of an invisible giant, leaving a perfectly round opening, just large enough for a person to slip through without scraping the edges. What unsettled Sister Esperanza even more was the precision of the deformation. There were no tool marks, no torn or splintered metal. Only a smooth, deliberate bending, as if performed under supernatural control. Yet the window opened directly over a vertical cliff, 100 meters high, where only golden eagles dared to nest, and where the night wind howled with cries that sounded disturbingly like human wails. Brother Gaspar de los Remedios, the only man allowed to stay at the convent as caretaker and messenger with the outside world, was called at dawn to investigate. He searched the cliff base carefully, but found nothing, no body, no blood, not even footprints suggesting how the young nun could have vanished. It was as if she had dissolved into the mountain air. Sister Esperanza decided to keep the incident secret, convinced that some natural explanation would soon present itself. She ordered the other sisters to remain silent and discreetly wrote to Bishop Villarroel, telling him only that Sister Catalina had decided to abandon her vows and return to secular life. A pious lie, but one that would quickly collapse. 3 weeks later, Sister Maria del Carmen Dolores, a 23-year-old from Oaxaca, disappeared under identical circumstances. Her cell, number 8 in the north wing, was found empty at dawn. The window bars were twisted from the inside exactly the same as before. This time, Esperanza could not keep the silence. Whispers raced down the stone corridors like icy wind, and fear began to take root in the hearts of the remaining sisters. Brother Gaspar, a practical man of 60 who had served the church for 4 decades, suggested an explanation no one dared to voice aloud: someone from outside was abducting the nuns. Perhaps bandits who knew the secret mountain trails, or slave traders looking for young women to sell in the Caribbean ports. But that theory collapsed against 2 impossible facts. How could outsiders bend iron bars from the inside of locked cells? And why was there never a single trace of their presence left behind? The months following the second disappearance transformed Santa Eulalia into a completely different place. The silence of the convent, once filled with spiritual peace, became tense, expectant, broken by hurried footsteps and whispered prayers. The sisters no longer walked the stone corridors alone, they moved in pairs or groups, constantly glancing over their shoulders. Many confessed to Esperanza that they suffered recurring nightmares, where disembodied voices called to them from the surrounding mountains. In response, the abbess imposed unprecedented security measures. No nun was allowed to sleep alone. Each cell had to house at least 2 sisters. No one could move about the building after Compline without company. Brother Gaspar began nightly rounds every 2 hours, carrying an oil lantern and loudly reciting Ave Marias to ward off any lurking evil in the shadows. Yet the dread only deepened. It was during this fragile time that Sister Isabel de la Concepcion de la Purísima arrived, a 25-year-old woman whose presence would change the convent's destiny forever. Unlike the others, Isabel did not come from a wealthy family. She was the daughter of Tlasolteotl, a Totonac blacksmith who had converted to Christianity under the Franciscans, but who secretly preserved the knowledge of ancient metallurgical rituals, and Esperanza Valdez, a Spanish woman of impoverished Andalusian nobility who had sought refuge in the Franciscan missions after her family lost its estates in the Wars of Succession. This unique heritage gave Isabel a rare perspective. She could recite in Latin the most complex prayers of Thomas Aquinas, yet she also knew the sacred Totonac chants her father had taught her in secret during childhood. Her fluency in indigenous languages, her familiarity with local traditions, and her unusual gift for interpreting symbolic dreams according to ancestral teachings quickly made her a respected, and even feared, figure among the younger nuns, who sought her counsel whenever their nightmares grew too vivid to ignore. It was Sister Isabel who first dared to voice what everyone suspected but no one wanted to admit. The convent had been built on a sacred Totonac site, specifically, a temple dedicated to Tlasolteotl, the goddess of purification and lust. The village elders remembered how their grandparents spoke of the Cave of the Vanished Women, a place where maidens had once been offered to the gods in rituals that mingled sacred ecstasy with sacrificial death. This revelation tore the convent community into two irreconcilable factions. One, led by Sister Esperanza, rejected any explanation outside strict Christianity and considered Isabel's ideas dangerous pagan superstition. The other, formed mostly by the younger nuns, began to see disturbing connections between these ancient tales and the recent disappearances. And so, as the mystery of Santa Eulalia deepened, the sisters were divided between faith and fear, devotion and doubt. The winter of 1770 brought the heaviest rains the region had seen in decades. The trails connecting Santa Eulalia to the outside world became completely impassable, isolating the 42 women within a realm of perpetual fog and supernatural silence. It was during one of those stormy nights that Sister Isabel made the discovery that would change everything. While searching the sacristy for extra candles for the evening rosary, she noticed that one of the stone slabs beneath her feet sounded hollow. Intrigued, and taking advantage of the others being occupied in prayer, she examined the spot carefully. With the help of a nearby fire poker, she lifted the slab and uncovered a rectangular cavity carved into the volcanic rock. Inside the hidden chamber lay three objects that froze her blood. A beautifully illustrated pre-Columbian codex, written in Totonac hieroglyphs, which she could partially read. A solid golden chalice, adorned with symbols blending Christian and pagan imagery. And most disturbing of all, a diary, written in colonial Spanish, dated only 2 years earlier. The diary belonged to Sister Catalina Remedios, the first nun to vanish. At first, the entries were ordinary, meticulous descriptions of convent routine, theological reflections on the writings of Saint Teresa of Avila, expressions of gratitude for having escaped the marriage her family had tried to impose, and the joy of finding her true vocation. But as the dates approached October 1768, the tone shifted drastically. The handwriting grew irregular, as if penned in states of mounting agitation. Catalina began describing vivid, recurring dreams in which a female voice, speaking in archaic Totonac, words she had never learned yet somehow understood instinctively, called her into the depths of the earth, promising revelations no Christian confessor could offer. "The goddess speaks to me each night," she wrote in an entry a week before her disappearance. "She shows me visions of women like me, who found true purification not by denying their nature, but by surrendering fully to the primordial feminine force. Christianity is only a mask, covering truths far older and far more powerful. Soon I will understand the call I feel within the deepest part of my being." The final entry, scrawled in trembling ink, was the most chilling of all. "Tonight is the night. I feel my body changing, my strength multiplying. Iron bars bend like wax beneath my transformed hands. The cave awaits me. Tlasolteotl has chosen me to show the path to my sisters. Fear not for me. Where I go, I will find an ecstasy no Christian prayer could ever offer." For 3 days, Sister Isabel read and reread Catalina's diary in secret, struggling to comprehend its implications. The codex helped shed light. It described a ritual called Tlasolteotl, the sacred transformation, in which young women were led into underground caverns to undergo a metamorphosis, becoming intermediaries between the human and divine worlds. According to the codex, the process required ingesting sacred mushrooms mixed with menstrual blood under the full moon, followed by chants that opened portals to the spiritual realm where Tlasolteotl resided. Those who succeeded gained superhuman strength and the ability to move between dimensions, but at the cost of abandoning their fully human form forever. On the night of February 15, 1771, as Sister Isabel meditated on whether to reveal her discovery to Mother Esperanza, a sound reached her ears that filled her with terror. Chants ancient, in archaic Totonac, rose from somewhere beneath the convent. The voices were unmistakably feminine, intoning the very same ritual phrases described in the codex. It wasn't a single voice, but a chorus of at least 6 women, singing in perfect harmony. Summoning her courage, Isabel armed herself with a crucifix and the brightest lantern she could find. She followed the sounds through the corridors until she reached the cellar where provisions were stored. There, hidden behind several barrels of oil, she noticed a narrow crack in the wall she had never seen before, just wide enough for a slim body to squeeze through. From it came a warm draft of air, heavy with the scent of copal and some unknown incense. As Isabel drew closer, the chants intensified, weaving into a polyphony that included not only human voices, but also strange instruments she could not identify, bone whistles that shrieked like birds of prey, drums of animal skin resonating with impossible depth, and crystalline tones that rang like glass bells submerged in water. With trembling hands and a heart pounding so loudly she feared it would betray her, Isabel raised her lantern to the crack. She glimpsed what appeared to be a natural tunnel spiraling downward into the mountain's core. The tunnel walls were covered in Totonac pictographs that glowed with a green phosphorescence, pulsing in rhythm with the chants as if the images themselves were alive, answering the subterranean music. The ground was carpeted with flower petals she did not recognize, some a crimson so intense they looked like crystallized blood, others a golden yellow that shone like liquid sunlight, and still others a blue so deep it hurt to look at them directly. Their intoxicating fragrance reminded her vaguely of copal incense, but blended with something more primal, something that awakened memories older than her own life. Just then, footsteps echoed down the main corridor. In haste, Isabel pushed the barrels back to conceal the crack and returned to her cell. But before she fled, she heard something that would haunt her forever. A voice she recognized unmistakably as Sister Catalina's. But it was changed, impossibly transformed, deeper, resonant, powerful. Sisters, come to us. The true paradise awaits in the depths. The surface is only an illusion. Down here, we are eternal. The days after her discovery became pure torment for Sister Isabel. Each night, the subterranean chants returned. And each day, she noticed more of her sister showing strange signs, glassy eyes during prayer, secret smiles, and an unnatural strength that allowed them to lift heavy objects with ease. Mother Esperanza, overwhelmed by what she could not understand, began drinking consecrated wine in excess, locking herself in her cell for hours and muttering incomprehensible prayers. Finally, on the night of February 21, 1771, Isabel made the decision that would define her destiny. Waiting until the convent slept, she returned to the cellar, this time carrying the golden chalice and a portion of the sacred mushrooms she had found in the secret sacristy. Her plan was desperate yet clear, to follow the vanished sisters into the depths and confront the force that had transformed them. Following the Codex's instructions, she consumed the mushrooms. Her consciousness shifted instantly, her senses sharpening to inhuman levels. She could see perfectly in darkness. She could hear whispers hundreds of meters away. She could feel the pulse of every living being in the mountain. The tunnel spiraled downward for what felt like hours, twisting through chambers adorned with stalactites dripping a luminous amber liquid that pooled in circular stone basins carved into the floor. Each drop echoed like crystal, adding notes to the great subterranean symphony. The walls told a story in glowing Totonac pictographs, first, simple scenes of fertility and harvest rituals, then, progressively, more complex images blending Christian iconography with symbols Isabel could not name, but which pulled at her with magnetic force. The chants grew louder, richer, accompanied now by drums said to be stretched with human skin, by flutes carved from the bones of long-extinct creatures, and by a low vibration so deep it resonated in Isabel's skeleton, as if her very bones had become an instrument of sound. At last, she emerged into a colossal cavern that defied all understanding of architecture, whether sculpted by impossible geology or by beings who knew engineering beyond anything of the 18th century. The cavern was vast, lit by torches burning with impossible flames, emerald green, dragon's blood red, and starcore blue. Shadows shifted across the walls as if alive. At the center stood a statue of Tlasolteotl, breathtaking and terrible. 20 meters high, carved from black obsidian drawn from volcanoes unknown to any map. Inlaid with hypnotic gold patterns, shimmering jade polished to transparency, and rubies the size of ostrich eggs that pulse like living hearts of light. Her eyes, perfect diamonds the size of clenched fists, followed Isabel's movements with an intelligence that transcended stone, as though the statue were a window through which an ancient consciousness peered into the mortal world. But what froze Isabel's soul was not the statue. At its base, 17 women danced in a circle around a stone altar, the missing nuns. No longer fully human. Their bodies had transformed, skin pearlescent, reflecting torchlight, eyes glowing gold, movements graceful and feline, bending the laws of physics. At their head was Sister Catalina, smiling with both maternal love and predatory hunger. "Dearest sister," she said, her voice like crystal bells, "you have found the true path. The convent above is only a prison where women deny their divine nature. Here below, we have become what we were always meant to be, priestesses of the primordial goddess, guardians of knowledge the patriarchal church seeks to bury. What Isabel witnessed in those hours beneath the mountain shattered everything she thought she knew about faith, womanhood, and the limits of human reality. The transformed sisters explained that what the church feared as diabolical corruption was, in truth, a sacred evolution. Tlasolteotl was not a demon, but the embodiment of the primordial feminine force, creator, purifier, life-bringer, whose power had been demonized by male-dominated religions. The ritual of transformation required complete surrender. The novices had to abandon not only their past lives, but also their fully human form. In exchange, they were granted immortality, cosmic wisdom, and the ability to exist across multiple dimensions. They could return to the surface world at will, but would always remain bound to the cavern and the goddess who had chosen them. Isabel faced the most difficult decision of her life. Join her sisters in divine metamorphosis, or return to the convent to preserve the truth. The women did not pressure her. They waited with the patience of beings who had transcended time. The call must come from within, Sister Catalina told her. When you are ready, the cave will await you. Until then, you may serve as our link to the world above. At dawn on February 22, 1771, Isabel returned to the convent transformed, but not in body. She carried within her a terrible and wondrous knowledge. In the weeks that followed, she quietly identified the sisters who seemed to hear the underground call. Some she warned, urging them to flee. Terrified, a few abandoned Santa Eulalia forever. Others, entranced by the promise of transcendence, descended willingly into the caverns to join Tlasolteotl's priestesses. By 1785, only 7 nuns remained in Santa Eulalia. The rumors of supernatural events reached Bishop Villarroel, who finally ordered the convent to be closed. The archives were sealed. The buildings were left to the jungle. And speaking of Santa Eulalia was forbidden under pain of excommunication. A year later, during a full moon night in 1786, Sister Isabel herself vanished. In her cell she left only a note. I have found the balance between 2 worlds. Sisters who seek the truth will know where to find me. The legacy. To this day, in the old town of Jalapa, locals swear that on full moon nights the chants of women can still be heard rising from the ruins of Santa Eulalia. And sometimes, young women of the region disappear without explanation, leaving behind only their folded clothes beside the twisted iron bars that once guarded the convent cells. Local authorities dismiss these cases as accidents or voluntary migrations. But the Totonac elders know the truth. Tlasolteotl still calls to her daughters. And some still answer.